I'd like to thank the audience and the panel members for coming out today. I'd like to thank the principal, Mr. Bevan, and the superintendent of schools, Dr. Antonucci, for their support and enthusiasm for SIP. I'd also like to thank Ms. Masuda for being my video production teacher for the last 3 years, and really supporting and guiding my passion. And Ms. Neal for really helping me out with the casting of my short film. Okay, so my name is Wesley Diaz, and for my SIP project, I decided to explore and develop my passion for screenplay writing and filmmaking. So before I really get into my journey over the last year, I'd like to talk to you all about evolution. And not the kind of evolution that occurs over hundreds of millions of years, but the type of evolution that can occur over a single lifetime, a childhood even. So this is a picture of me at 9 years old. I'm holding a Fujifilm handheld digital camera. And from an extremely young age, I was very drawn to creative writing, photography, and filmmaking. I was inexperienced, I couldn't keep a fluid train of thought, yet I had this internal passion. So with that internal passion, let's fast forward 9 years. I'm 18 now. I've gone to summer film programs at Harvard and Boston University. I've gone to 3 years of video production at Westwood High School, and I've won a student Emmy. But over the last year, I think I've evolved more in this year than I have over all of 9. And that was really due to the SIP program. SIP has given me opportunities unlike any other program I have had in the past. Opportunities such as a professional mentor, resources, and even, most of all, time. An entire year to complete my project. So let's fast forward actually now 9 years. This is me on set of my short film, Broken. And this is my final SIP project here, filming. You can see I have 3 friends behind me on the production side, and I have 2 professional Boston actors in front of me that are reading and acting out lines that I actually wrote, which is very exciting. I'm sitting on and I'm filming on thousands of dollars worth of equipment. And as you can see, I have really evolved from those 2 pictures, and I've especially evolved in the last year due to SIP. Okay, so in the beginning, I'll talk about my mentor on the next slide. In the beginning, my mentor told me that I should focus on writing a pilot, because in the beginning I wanted to just do writing. I thought that I had all the technical camera aspects down. So I wanted to write a pilot, which is a 25 to 30 page screenplay that is the first episode of a TV show. But I really wanted to push myself a little further than that. So I altered my mission statement, and I decided that I wanted to write a short film that I would then cast, direct on my own, produce, and edit, which was a very challenging task. But this year I really wanted to challenge myself, because this is a career that I want to go into. So let me tell you a little bit about my mentor. And I cannot even begin to express the excitement I felt when I found out at the beginning of the year that the SIP faculty paired me up with a Hollywood professional. My mentor's name is Eli Dolman, and he is a producer in LA. He's produced shows such as Scrubs, American Dad, and Cosmos: A Space-Time Odyssey. I have had such an incredible experience with him over the last year. He's taught me production standards and industry standards, tips and tricks that I really haven't gotten out of any other program. And I felt so incredibly important answering his phone calls that I got about every other week, because the caller ID said Hollywood, California. And then I got to talk to him about screenplay writing and film. And it was just an incredible experience over the last year, and he helped me so much I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. All right, so let me tell you about the never-ending process of creating a short film on your own. All right, so what I learned from Eli is you have to start at the foundation of the skyscraper, basically. And I kind of started my screenplay off in a very unconventional way. I was vacationing in Martinique, and I kind of got hit with an idea in the night. And really, I didn't have internet, I didn't have paper even, I had a pen. So I just took a roll of paper towels, and I decided to write out the entire timeline. So that is that, kind of some crazy thinking. And I did that in one night, and that was kind of the basis of where I started my short film. So as you can see, this is crazy. It's a timeline that maps out every scene that I wanted to happen in the short film, and obviously this is not exactly what was put into the short film, but this here. So obviously that's not industry standard. I told Eli about it, and he wasn't upset with me, but he was like, this isn't the way you do things. So he taught me the industry standard way of creating an idea, and that's starting with a beat sheet and not this craziness. I'm glad I did it though, because I wouldn't have been able to write this beat sheet without it. So Eli taught me that a beat sheet is basically the structure, the outline of your screenplay. It starts with the generic story arc of rising action, climax, and falling action. You can apply a beat sheet to basically any film that has ever been made. So here you can see I'm starting with an opening image. I move to a theme stated, which is rising action, bad guys close in, rising action, all is lost, which is the climax, and then the finale and final image, which is the basically the falling action and resolution. So he taught me how to do that, and then he taught me that the next step you take is to figure out who your characters really are. You need to know their backstories, where they came from, their families. So I had to write a lot about that, and basically their emotions and how they shift throughout the entire story, their arcs. So I came up with my two main characters, which are Jane and Thomas, and I wrote a 5-part character arc for them and their fluctuating emotions as the film goes on. So after you do that, you have to go even further in depth on your characters. You need to describe their appearance, what they look like, the mannerisms they have. The main character, Jane, in my short film, I wrote her to be a manic depressive, so she has all these nervous tics. She has a jitter in her knee. She's always picking at the lanulas in her fingernails. So I did describe that, as well as describing the locations as well. You have to go as far into depth as where you want the sun to be in a certain scene, or if you want a shadow on this character's face. So it has to go a lot further in depth. And then finally, once you have done all of those things, you can begin with the screenplay. So I'm sure you guys are all curious about what I was writing about, but let me give you a little bit of backstory first. So I was a little limited because I knew I had to film in Boston with Boston actors because I wanted to use professionals. And I knew that I had to work with people that were in their 20s. So I was confined to 20-year-old people in Boston. So I had to write a screenplay based off of that. So I'll give you a quick synopsis because I'm sure you are all very curious. So the short film basically revolves around this woman, Jane, who, as I said, is a manic depressive. And Jane is a reticent woman who decides to go on an online date with a writer she met online. And little does she know, this writer is harboring a secret from her. And a very unconventional style date sends Jane into vivid and painful flashbacks of what made her so protective and careful with her love in the first place. So that's basically my pitch. That's like, doesn't give too much information out, and that's supposed to like capture the audience. That's what I wrote on my crowdfunding page, which I'll get to. So yeah, that's basically the synopsis. So Eli taught me basically how to format this entire screenplay that I wrote. It's 15 pages. And so let me explain to you some of the fundamental formatting pieces of the screenplay. So at the top there you can see that there is something called action dialogue. So this is basically, the actor does not read this. He or she, this is basically what they're doing in the scene. So as you can see, this is their action. It says Thomas interjects forcefully, persuasively. So this is showing that Thomas is interrupting the scene. Next you have character dialogue. You can see right underneath that it says Thomas, that identifies who's speaking, and underneath that further it has his lines. In between that you can see that I have something called a parenthetical. Now what a parenthetical is basically the tone, how the actor should deliver those lines. So also you have something called capitalization, which is basically a key for the actor when they're reading through the screenplay. specific objects that they are manipulating, specific actions that they are following through with. So as you can see, it says they walk at a consistent pace. I capitalized walk because that basically reminds the actors that they are still moving at this time. And then at the bottom, you can see I have something called smash cut 2. That's called the transition. It's going to the next scene. And this is a smash cut. A smash cut is a little different since it's going into a flashback. I wanted it to be abrupt and kind of shocking for the audience to see. So that's why I used that. And then there's revisions. This is basically took me as much time as actually writing the screenplay on its own. The original screenplay was 17 to 18 pages, and Eli told me to flip-flop scenes. I actually took entire scenes out. I've actually taken an entire character out to kind of shorten it and make it more manageable for actually filming, because 15 pages of screenplay correlates with 15 minutes of on-screen time. So that took me a very long time. So now that I had the screenplay written, I can move on to some more fun things such as crowdfunding. So this is the Indiegogo fundraising page that I started. And I'd like to shout out to the superintendent schools and the principal for shouting me out on social media, as well as Ms. Testa. They shouted me out on Twitter, even the school website. And I really couldn't have raised $525 without them for my short film. I was even advertising the school store. I want to thank Derek too. So I basically started this as I was writing the screenplay, and I created some concept art on Photoshop. I came up with the name. I knew that I wanted a scene to be in a coffee shop, and that was the inspiration for that concept art that I made on Photoshop. So now I have $525. I had to talk with Eli on how I can appropriately spend this money. So he taught me on how to spend money on actors, equipment, location, props even. So I had to create this budget, which took me a very long time, and I had to really figure out what the best way to spend my money was. Okay, so this is casting talent. Up here are three actors, three of the lead actors that were in my short film, Broken. At the top, you can see this woman's name is Heather Pearson. Below is Emmanuel Jambert, and then the male lead, Samuel Hutchinson. And they play the roles of Jane at the top, Thomas on the far right, and Justin on the far left. So I basically created a sign-up sheet on Google Docs, and I sent out basically an ad for both the male and female leads for people to contact me and sign up on the sheet. Again, I want to thank Ms. Neal for setting me up with Heather. She was amazing throughout the entire process. And yeah, I held auditions via Skype. They took about 10-15 minutes long. I always had someone else by my side to feed them lines. And that really helped me because I could watch them act. I didn't have to speak and look down at any point. So altogether, I had 5 female auditions for 1 lead, and I had 4 male auditions for 2 leads. And I ended up just picking the 1 female and these 2 males. So that took a very long time. And then I had to figure out on how am I going to get equipment. I wanted this short film to look as professional as possible. So I ended up going to a company named Adams Camera. And the owner of the company was extremely nice, and he actually let me go for the day and test out this professional industry standard equipment. And he taught me how to use it, which was an incredible experience. So I had to make a trip there, make a trip back, make a trip there the next day, rent out the equipment for 2 days, and then film over those 2 days and then bring it back. And basically he gave me what you call a Western dolly, which is what you sit on. You saw me in the first photo that I showed you, which was very difficult to manipulate. And he also gave me 2 sawhorses and PVC track that I slid the camera on skateboard wheels on to get a fluid tracking shot. Okay, so let's move on. Next, I had to location scout. So I wanted to film in the Boston Public Garden, and I also wanted to film in a coffee shop in Brookline. So I made 2 trips into Boston, and what you do when you location scout is you're basically figuring out where the sun is in the sky, when you want to film, and you take tons of pictures. So this is the bench that I wanted the short film to start out on. And I also made a quick trip into a coffee shop in Brookline that I ended up renting out. And that was a phenomenal experience because he gave us, free coffee for the night. We could, go anywhere in the coffee shop. It was a great experience. Okay, so after doing all that, you can actually start filming. So I decided to take a couple of stills for my short film of the rough cut, and I'll go through them with you. So I had this vision when I started writing the film, and these were some of the images I saw in my head and that I tried to portray on film as best as I could. So here you can see is towards the end of the film. This is Jane and Thomas, and they're walking into the coffee shop and they're ordering. As you can see, Thomas's eye level is above Jane's, showing kind of that he is acting above him. Thomas's character is what you call an unknown antagonist. That's when you think he's a good guy until the very end. So throughout the short film, I'm trying to throw out these subtle hints that Thomas is kind of bad. He's almost dominating in this shot composure. So his eye level is above hers. I'm also showing in this shot that Jane is a manic depressive, that she feels like she's claustrophobic, things are closing in on her. And this is a filming technique called framing. So I filmed through, this is Justin Emmanuel, the actor, and I'm filming through his arm to kind of frame Jane's face to kind of make her feel a little more claustrophobic. So in the next shot here, this is in a flashback sequence of Jane talking with her ex-boyfriend on the phone, and she is consumed by jealousy. She's very upset, and that's just her holding the phone away and looking at it. And as you can see, I'm focusing on the phone, and in the background, her face is blurred out. In the next shot, this is towards the beginning. This is, Jane and Thomas together. You can see Jane is very hurt, and she's looking to Thomas for comfort. And again, you can see a very subtle hint of Thomas's eye line being above Jane's. And we're at eye level with Thomas, and we're kind of on a downward angle of Jane, and that kind of shows that she's smaller and that she's really hurt. So this is another shot. This is one of the last shots of the short film. It's an extreme close-up of a coffee cup, and as you can see, there's some blood on the rim and blood dripping down. And this is, the coffee cup is really a motif throughout the entire short film. And I don't want to give too much away, but it's obviously hinting that something very bad went down. And then this is another shot that's in a quick flashback sequence. I can see if I can play it here. And basically this is called a rack focus. I want to use some symbolism as, I'll play it one more time. I wanted to really create some symbolism that almost like this wires Jane. She's by herself, she's standalone. She also has red hair. For the short film, I smashed a home phone for a flashback sequence, and I got some really cool shots with that for a flashback. Okay. So now that I've filmed all this footage, I have over 90 minutes of uncut footage. I have to now go into the last step of production, which is post-production. This means that you have to organize all that footage. You have to actually watch it, put it into different bins. You have to start editing a rough cut, which is what I have started to complete now. And you have to color correct the shots. You have to add in visual effects. Now, when people think of visual effects, they think of Marvel movies and big explosions, but that's not necessarily visual effects. Anytime you turn on a TV, whether it's even reality TV, you're looking at visual effects, whether people are adding lighting to a face or they're color correcting, color grading. That is really visual effects. And if you don't see it, that just means that it's being done well. You also have to sound mix. So in the coffee shop, obviously I was filming in there by myself. I didn't hire any extras. So I have to add in ambient sounds to make it sound a little more lively and that people are really in that location. I have to complete titling, and I even have to create a credit sequence as well. So that's a very long process, and that's currently the process I'm in now. Okay, so I thought that I'd show you a little example of the end of the short film. But before I show you that, I'd like to show you what it looks like in the screenplay, actually. So basically, what I'm about to show you is just where you see smash cut to the bottom smash cut to. I wanted to have those lines above to kind of give you a reference. So in this short clip, it's a flashback of Jane. Now, it's a flashback of Jane creating her online dating profile a few nights before. It says 2 nights before. This is what you call a slug line too. I didn't mention that earlier. So that says interior, Jane's apartment living room 2 nights ago. That's basically saying where it is and when it happened. So this shows that she's in her apartment, it's 2 nights ago, she's creating an online dating profile. And I really wanted to make such a simple scene as dramatic as I could. I'm really trying to like express her emotion and express that she's deep down very, very hurt right now from her past experiences, her past ex-boyfriends. And yeah, I basically wanted to show her hesitation. She's very hesitant to reach out to someone else and contact and go on this date. So I wanted to make such a simple interaction as emotional as possible. So I'll show you that now. Towards the end of the film, you can see that obviously you already know this character. As you can see, a lot of hesitation there in the back. So you can see the cursor hovers over contacts. Pause. Cut to the eyes to show what her emotion is at that moment. And then cut to a very extreme close-up of her finger hovering over the trackpad until she finally clicks it. And I think that really holds that hesitation there. Okay, so let me go back to my experience throughout this entire thing. Again, I am incredibly grateful for the SIP faculty for setting me up with Eli. I honestly could not have done this project without him. He's walked me through, again, so many industry standards with screenplay writing, with being able to communicate with actors like this. This is me on set at the Boston Public Garden, and I'm talking to my 2 lead actors. And really, I felt so much at home, just standing there, communicating with people, and really directing. So going back to evolution, over the last year, I think I've changed as a filmmaker, as a writer, and as a person, more than I have in my entire life, more than I have in the last 9 years going to film programs and countless years of studying film and writing on my own. I'm incredibly grateful for my experience, and really I suggest that anyone can evolve and change over a year or 9 the way I have. And I encourage people to follow their passions and do something very similar to this, because I honestly could not be happier. I'm attending the same film school that Eli Dolman, my mentor, is at Syracuse University Film School. And I'm incredibly excited, and I really want to follow in a very similar footprint as he has. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to the panel here to ask a few questions. Or the audience, too.
I'm totally blown away that you're able to manage your regular schoolwork and doing all of this, along with just, I'm just blown away. The fact that you could write a screenplay about 20-something-year-olds and you're 18, 19 years old. I'm sure your psychology class.
Oh, absolutely. I drew so much from AP Psych.
But seriously, how did you come up with those type of experiences for your characters to have, where you haven't actually experienced that like that?
Right. Really, a big thing in writing a screenplay is you have to draw and kind of take from your personal experience. You have to take from people that you actually know. And basically what a lot of these characters are different people that I'm familiar with, and I kind of mesh them together. I take this person's personality, or these attributes of their personality that I like, and this person and these personality attributes I like, and I combine them together. And I think that creates the best character. So really, I drew from some people that I know. Maybe it's also a character and influence from another television show. And that's really how I came up with the basis of my characters. And honestly, location-wise, I wanted to pick the Boston Public Garden because I thought it looked basically the prettiest at sunset. And I wanted to pick the coffee shop because that coffee shop, I looked at it, the interior lighting was very nice. And so you draw from your past experiences to create a concept like that. Robbie?
Well, it was obviously a very long process.
Yeah,
so very presentation. What do you think was the most difficult part for you?
Oh man, I really want to say coming up with an idea, because I was very constrained. I don't want to say, obviously it was difficult throughout the entire journey of this. Filming, actually driving place to place to place to place. I spent countless hours, just in my car driving. Or I probably sent over 100 emails, whether it's to a camera company or, the 5 different actors, male actors. And that was a long process, so that was difficult, just like the movement part of that, not the actual doing. But I would say coming up with an idea that was so constrained was probably the most difficult. Because it's tough, I don't want to say that I was in writer's block myself, but I was so grateful that when I was away, it just kind of hit me, that idea. And really, that's how, the only way I can really come up with things is I need to take time, I need to relax. And it's almost like when you stop trying to think of an idea, you then get hit with an idea. And it was in that off moment where, screenplay writing and filmmaking was totally out of my mind. I was on vacation, and I kind of cleared up my mind for a bit, and I think that allowed an opportunity for the idea to hit me. And then actually writing was difficult as well. But I think just like the going back and forth and not even being able to come up with an idea and struggling was the hardest part for me, for sure.
Well, hats off to you. It's a great project.
Thank you.
Project management is such a big aspect of both the screenwriting and film producing. What would you do differently after you've had this experience you set out? Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I've obviously learned a lot over the last year. I'd say the biggest thing that I learned was I underestimated how long filming takes. So I've never actually had to direct professional actors, and that takes a long time to tell them, give them their marks, tell them you're doing this at this point. You have to film every shot twice. You have to do 2 takes of every shot. And in a scene, you could have, 3 different shots of the same exact dialogue. So that's immediately 6 shots for one scene, and usually scenes are split up even. So, I rented out the coffee shop for 90 minutes, thinking that, oh yeah, this is like one short scene, and, I can probably film it in less than that time. The screenplay during that scene was only like 5 minutes or so, or 5 pages, so it should, correlate to 5 minutes. It shouldn't take me that long. 5 minutes to 90 minutes, that shouldn't be a thing. But honestly, if I would feel so much better if I had like 3 or 4 hours, I'm not gonna lie. Robbie was there, he actually helped me hold mic and do lighting. And I'm sure you know that we were very rushed at the end, kind of running around. It was very frantic. I mean, obviously I wasn't upset. I was extremely excited to kind of be crazed and going all over the place. But I definitely changed my timing. I would rent out the coffee shop for 4 hours. I would go to the Boston Common and I would, section off 4 hours of time to work with the actors. Absolutely, timing is so off for me on this project, and next time I think I'm gonna have a lot better understanding of how to go about that. I'm glad I experienced that now instead of going to college and making the same mistake. Yes.
So first I want to say, this is amazing both in what you were able to get out of this project and your project itself.
Thank
I
you.
also want to say your presentation was very clear and articulate.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. And so my question is kind of opposite of what you've been asked, like, so it's difficult and different. So I'll ask the opposite question, which is, what was the best thing or your favorite thing about this experience?
It's so difficult. Man, I was just so happy, just like incredibly happy throughout this entire process. Yes, I was stressed out, but I was like happy stressed. That is probably the hardest question I could answer about this, because you know what, I think I want to say just talking on the phone with Eli. Obviously I love everything here, but really being able to communicate with someone that's telling me about his college experience and what he did at Syracuse Film School, knowing that I'm going to Syracuse Film School, and being able to follow in similar footsteps, and him, educating me on industry standards, something that I haven't gotten out of any, film school summer program, or anything. Being able to communicate with him and learn from a professional was such an incredible experience. So I have to say, since I couldn't stop smiling on the phone every time I talked to him, I would say that would be my favorite part of the entire process. Yes, sir.
So obviously, Wes, you're moving forward as an artist, and you'll be creating more projects in the future. So what I was wondering is, as a director and a writer, in terms of your artistic vision,
Sure.
what did you pull from this process in terms of what you're excited about continuing? So is there a particular?
Yes. So since I was a little kid, the biggest thing I want to accomplish with directing is I want to create shots or visuals that are heretofore unseen. Like a shot from an angle that you're like, wow, how'd they do that? Or, how'd you put a camera there? And I, since I was a little kid, I was totally impressed by shots like that. So I tried to begin, possibly doing some unique shots, something that people haven't really seen before, that are unfamiliar to people, like that framing shot to show that claustrophobia. I think a lot of people don't think too much about when they see that, but subliminally they can see, yeah, her eye level's below there. There's this black sleeved arm around her, kind of coming around her face. And you really subliminally take those hints and understand that, you can understand on that level of what that character's feeling. And in the future, one day, I want to create my masterpiece or whatever, when I'm 50 or older or whatever, and a director if I can, and that will just be full of shots that people just haven't seen. And I want to, as a filmmaker and as a writer, I want to create unique experiences, and I really feel like this was a huge stepping stone for me, and it's basically the foundation of what I'll build a career on. But yeah, that's what I'll do. Yes.
Okay, so I heard some music at one point in that clip you showed. So how does like the hunt for music work in that? Because like,
Okay.
do you find like stuff that isn't like copyrighted by any specific music company or something like that?
So, right there was music that actually was not copyright free. I will be working with my girlfriend there, Ellie, who's going to be actually doing a similar violin musical put together of that rendition. But I watch a crazy amount of TV and movies as a filmmaker and writer. Like, it is almost embarrassing how much I watch. So I'm also listening to all the music that they use. So that short violin piece was actually from a TV show on HBO called Leftovers. And I kept a very similar theme to them, cinematography wise. So that's kind of how I pulled from there. But I don't really do a Google search. It's more like if I'm to use copyright music, I would definitely pull from, thousands of movies I've seen or hundreds of TV shows I've watched through. So instead of doing the Google search, I kind of try to search my own head of what a similar feel is and then use music based off of that. Dr. Antonucci?
Wes, number one, thanks for the shout out. As a trade-off, I want to invite you to your first Oscar party. I am nearly speechless. I mean, no one asked me a question, but phenomenal job, and I love it. And tracking the project.
Thank you.
You should be immensely proud. We're all immensely proud of you. Sorry, I can't say enough good things about it. Just what you've accomplished and you've just shown us.
Thank you so much.
Just kind of a random question though about your budget, because
Yes, absolutely.
you accomplished so much with. It was very difficult to fundraise
Absolutely.
with a relatively modest amount, $500. Is there something that you would have done or could have done differently if you had making this up like a $10,000 budget?
Absolutely. Yes. So another thing that was new to me that I might do differently next time is I set my goal at $500, thinking that I wouldn't even be able to reach half of that. And I actually blew that away by $25. I got $525. And I thought that was too much. I was almost embarrassed about how much money I raised for it. And honestly, I did not understand how expensive equipment is. How, I needed to possibly, if I wanted to bring an actor in one more day, I wouldn't have enough money for that. And I could only maintain 3 actors throughout the entire shoot. So if I had a $10,000 budget, I could hire several more actors. I could expand the screenplay. I could actually write more, which it's so hard to keep it under 15 pages because if I write more, every page will probably be an extra $50 or $100 depending on the scene. So if I had $10,000, I would say I'd write the screenplay, I'd make it 50 pages, and I would go full out on giant location rentals and really, better equipment even. More actors, and I think it would just give me more opportunities. The more money, the more opportunities. That's just how it works in film. But still, with $525, I am so incredibly grateful that I got to that point. And I would not have been able to do anything close to this if I didn't get donations from people who contributed. So I really want to thank the people who did that.
I want to say, again, just a comment and piggyback on Dr. Antonucci. For being in the business almost 25 years, for being up in that coast, so much talent, so much presentation that everyone saw, but your drive and the fact that you're so likable, you will meet so many people. Like I said, what you said about your first Oscar, I absolutely believe that you're going to go so far. Everything did your presentation, but that part too, there's so many not nice people in this business, and you're one of the good guys. I can see it already at your age, so you have a great future ahead of you.
Thank you very much.
To piggyback off that, but I don't even have a question anymore because every question I've asked all year, Wes has many answers to. Working with you has been completely amazing and mind-blowing and motivational.
I think that, to piggyback off the niceness for sure, and also the professionalism is amazing. Watching you film in town and having these professional actors practicing on the corner, you know, practicing the lines, asking Wes these amazing questions, listening to everything he said, and just really in awe of you, seeing them in awe of you because we all already were,
Yeah.
was a really, really cool experience for you.
Thank you so much.
Amazing
And
job.
thank you all.